do I need for a down payment? All right, this is a question I get asked a lot, so let's talk about it. For starters, no, you don't need 20% down to buy a house, although a lot of people think you do. So first of all, let's just talk about why people even think you need 20% down. If you buy a house with less than 20% down, you will have to pay mortgage insurance. So many people have this idea that you need 20% to buy a house. However, you just don't. Now, that is one strategy to use, saving up till you have 20% in order to avoid mortgage insurance. And sometimes it makes sense, but not every time. I have found time and time again that mortgage insurance is an affordable price, depending on lots of different factors, that it doesn't make sense to wait. And if you have to wait years in order to get in the house market just so you have your 20% down, you are delaying yourself years of building equity. And like I said, sometimes that makes sense. It is all about the strategy that makes sense for you and your situation. So how much do you actually need? There's a lot of different programs out there. So I'm going to go from the least up to the most. Let's start with that. So for starters, there's down payment assistance programs. Down payment assistance programs continue to expand, especially as affordability continues to be less and less attainable, right? So there are down payment programs that are through the state that you live in. I don't know if every state has them, but I know many do, probably all of them. And there's also down payment assistance programs that have nothing to do with your state. Oftentimes they're good for, and they're designed for, first-time home buyers, which means you haven't bought a house within the last 3 years. But not all of them require that. They're often good for those that are in specific areas. So sometimes they require you to live in a certain area. And they usually, but again, not always, they usually come with income limits. But as affordability continues to become harder and harder, and it becomes a bigger and bigger problem, these income limits continue to increase. So it is not for people that are low income necessarily. They're pretty lucrative. I mean, like in Washington State right now, this year, 2026, the income limit for Washington State is $215,000. I mean, that's a pretty significant income. So if you're somebody who fits that, and honestly, I have programs outside of that where there are no income limits, and they're worth exploring. All right, next up we have 0% down. So similar to down payment assistance, but these ones truly require 0% down. If you're a veteran or current active duty, there are your VA program. A lot of people are aware of that, but many are not. So with your VA loan, 0% down payment is required. Another one is USDA loans. These are loans designed for rural properties. So this one is definitely location specific, and they have a lot of parameters in terms of income based on the area. Next up, we have conventional 3% down. So if you are a first-time home buyer, again, that is classified as not have purchasing a house within the last 3 years, then you qualify as a first-time home buyer, which allows you to have the option of the down payment with a conventional loan at only 3%. If you're not a first-time home buyer, then 5% becomes the new minimum when you are using a conventional loan. If you use an FHA loan, then the minimum required would be 3.5% down payment. So those are what it takes. If you have 20% down or you're close to having 20% down, it might be worth waiting until you have it and get yourself into a conventional loan with 20% down. Now, just something to throw out there, if you end up in an FHA loan for some reason with 20% down, it's rare, but it's possible. You will still pay mortgage insurance. The only way to avoid it is a conventional loan with 20% down. And if you buy a home where you do have mortgage insurance, whether that's conventional or FHA, there is strategies to get you out of that down the road. Most often that happens because your house has built equity, and you can either refinance into a conventional loan, assuming you started in an FHA loan, now you have 20% equity. You can refinance and your mortgage insurance would be removed, just like as if you had your own 20% down payment to begin with. Another option is if you bought with a conventional loan and you don't want to refinance, but your house has gained enough equity to get to that 20%, then you just submit a request to the lender, whoever you are paying your bill to, your mortgage payment to every month, and you can have that removed. It often requires an appraisal at that 20%, and it will automatically drop off once you get to 22% equity, so 78% loan to value. Now, here's what a lot of people do forget though. Your down payment is not the only thing needed to buy a house. There are closing costs and there are prepaids. But there are strategic ways to make your offer in a way where the seller pays either some or all of your closing costs and prepaids on your behalf. A seller can never pay $1 towards your down payment, but they can pay 100% of your closing costs. Depending on the market, depending on where you live, and depending on how long the house has been on the market and how well it's priced, and so many other factors will determine whether that is an option for you. But as of this month, in Washington State, we are seeing 54% of sellers agreeing to paying some concessions. So it's a toss-up, right? And like I said, that's more about the strategy when you're putting your offer in. You don't just ask for it willy-nilly, because that could cost you your offer. Like, they could just pick somebody else's offer who didn't ask for it. So there are times where it doesn't make sense to ask for concessions, and honestly, your realtor would be the best person to strategize that with in the situation of a particular house, right? So why Googling the question of how much do I need for a down payment will only get you so far. Every buyer is different. We are going to look at so many different things. Of course, things like your credit, your income, your assets, but more importantly, your goals and your timeline. That is what's going to help us strategize what down payment makes the most sense to you. So a lot of people think they need $40,000 or more to buy a house because they're doing that math. And honestly, probably more in this market and depending on what area you live in. But I have had clients come in with much less than that. I mean, we can map out plans for $10,000 or less, depending on the area that you're in and the price point you're looking for. Like I said, you do have to have your own down payment unless you use down payment assistance programs. So there's a lot of routes somebody can go. And the longer you wait, the longer you are waiting to get into this equity building opportunity. So if you've been sitting on the sidelines because you thought you needed 20% down and you're trying to save up for that, this is your sign to reach out to me and at least have a conversation. You might be closer than you think. If you're not closer than you think, then worst case, you walk away with a plan. And we can strategize now so that in a year, 2 years, 3 years, when you are ready to buy a house, you are actually ready and not starting the discovery process then. So send me a message. I'd love to connect.